The battlefield echoed with a cry. Smoke rose from the burning wreckage of steel beasts and broken ships. The sky was black with ash and the ground was red, with blood bodies of both humans and aliens. Scattered across the dry, cracked soil, the battle had ended hours ago, but the silence now was louder than the war had ever been. In the middle of this shattered world, a figure moved, slowly dragging one leg behind him, his armor once shining, now dented, cracked, and burned. His name was Kartik, the last warrior of his clan. His breathing was heavy. Every step he took sent pain through his body. His left side was bleeding badly, but he refused to fall. He had to survive. Stumbled near a pile of rubble where the remains of his command ship lay broken. The control panel sparked weakly. Crushed under metal, his claws reached forward and tried to lift it, but he had no strength left. He sank to his knees, his breath shaky and soft. He was proud. Once feared by many, he had defeated dozens of human soldiers in open combat. His blade never missed. His roars used to shake the hearts of enemies, but now he was broken and alone. His voice cracked as he whispered mercy. It was not a word his kind used easily, but he was too tired to care. He looked up at the sky and saw nothing but dark clouds and falling ash. No backup, no ships, no one coming to save him. His blood mixed with the dirt. The wind howled through the empty fields like a mourning spirit. Far in the distance, a human soldier moved carefully, rifle in hand, scanning the ruins. His name was Lance Corporal Jace Monroe, young but experienced, his eyes sharp, his heart tired from too much war. He had lost friends today, some of them just minutes ago. He had followed the retreating enemies through the battlefield until he heard a sound, a soft, broken voice calling for mercy. He paused, unsure of what he had heard. Then he heard it again. He moved slowly toward the voice, stepping over the shattered remains of drones and broken weapons. He didn't know why he was going alone. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct, maybe something deeper. He found the source of the sound near a smoking engine and stopped. Kartik was on the ground, body slumped over, chest rising and falling like a dying drumbeat. Their eyes met. Jace raised his rifle automatically, then stopped. This alien was no threat anymore. His weapons were gone, his armor shattered, his blood was pouring into the dirt slowly. Jace lowered his weapon, took off his helmet, and looked closer. Kartik growled weakly, expecting death. He had fought humans. He had seen their hatred. He had seen them shoot wounded soldiers without blinking. But this human was different. He wasn't angry or afraid, just quiet, calm. His eyes didn't burn with war. They looked tired, like he was also trying to survive. "Why did you stay?" Kartik asked in a voice so low it was almost a breath. Jace knelt beside him and checked the wounds. They were bad, but not impossible to treat if someone tried. Jace looked around the area. No medics, no transport, no one watching, just him and a dying alien who once led a strike on a human colony. "Lucky. I don't like killing," Jace said without emotion, his voice flat, but not cruel. He opened a small pack and pulled out a sealant gel, began treating the wounds without thinking. Kartik flinched at first, then remained still, his pride wounded more than his body. He didn't understand this human. What was he doing? Why help the enemy? "This is against your orders," Kartik said slowly. Jace didn't answer for a moment, then finally said, "Maybe, but sometimes orders are wrong. Maybe you're not the monster we thought." Kartik wanted to argue, to scream that humans had burned his village, that he had every reason to hate them, but he couldn't speak. His throat was dry, his heart weak, and his vision fading. And yet, in this moment, something strange happened. A bond was formed, not with words, but with silence and blood and the soft, steady hands of a human soldier. Above them, unseen by either a small surveillance drone, blinked its red eye, recording everything. Its signal now moving through the network of warships circling the planet. Both human and alien leaders would soon see what had happened. They would see a warrior begging and a human showing mercy, and they would not all be happy. The sky cracked with distant thunder, not from weather, but from engines warming up. War might pause, but it never ended, and mercy had a cost. Jace didn't know it yet, but by saving this alien, he had just made himself a target of both sides. And Kartik, though too weak to speak, understood this truth deep in his fading heart. The battlefield was quiet again, but something new had begun. Something More dangerous than war, something that started with a cry and a choice to stay behind asterisk. The chains of survival. The wind grew colder as night approached, wrapping the battlefield in a ghostly silence. The fires had started to die, leaving behind glowing embers scattered like fallen stars across the dark soil. Jace sat near the wounded alien, trying to keep him warm with a thermal blanket, the same kind used for injured human soldiers. His eyes scanned the sky every few seconds, watching for drones or scouts. He had broken the rules by helping an enemy, but something inside him refused to walk away, something deep that even he could not explain. Kar's breathing had slowed, but it was steady. The sealant had stopped most of the bleeding. But the damage was worse than Jace expected. Alien's leg was crushed, and 2 of his ribs were broken. He could not walk, he could not fight. Yet his eyes were awake, watching the human with confusion and suspicion, as if waiting for the kindness to turn into a trick or trap. But the trick never came. "Why, Jace?" the alien asked, his voice more steady than before. "Why help me? You know what I did just didn't stop working." As he replied, "I know what we've all done. This war has turned everyone into killers. I just don't want to be one." Today Kartik looked away, his eyes staring into the smoke, as if trying to find the faces of the comrades he lost. Many of them were now part of the soil, their blood soaked into the earth of a planet they didn't even belong to. He had led them believing in honor, believing they could win. Now he was the only one left. Sound of engines in the sky made Jace freeze. He pulled out his scope and scanned the horizon. A patrol ship was approaching. Not alien, but human, his own people coming to secure the area. If they saw Kartik alive, they would finish the job, and Jace knew he couldn't let that happen. "Stay down," he whispered to the alien, then covered him with scraps of burnt armor and cloth, trying to hide the glowing hue of the alien's skin. Kartik didn't argue. His pride was already shattered, and now survival was all that mattered. The patrol ship landed nearby. 2 soldiers stepped out, rifles ready. They moved like ghosts through the ruins, searching for any remaining threats. Jace walked up to them, calmly pretending to check his comms and surroundings, acting like he was just another cleanup trooper. "Areas clear," Jace said with a firm tone. "No hostiles, just wreckage and bodies." One of the soldiers looked at him suspiciously. "Didn't HQ report an enemy signal from this sector?" "Just a malfunction from a broken transmitter," Jace replied, shrugging. "Probably from that half-burned ship over there." The soldier nodded, not fully convinced but unwilling to argue. They stayed a few minutes, scanned the area again, then moved back to their ship and took off, leaving behind only the sound of dust blowing through bones. They were gone. Jace rushed back to Kartik, uncovered him, and checked the wounds again. They were stable, but infection could start soon. He needed proper care, and Jace had no medkit strong enough for alien biology. "You lead to your own people," Kartik said quietly, a hint of wonder in his tone. "That will cost you." "I know," Jace replied without emotion. "I've seen good people die for less, but I'm not letting you die here, not like this." They sat in silence for a while, surrounded by death and ash, the moon above casting a pale light over the ruins. Kartik felt the cold creeping into his bones, but something else too. Something warm, not from fire, but from hope. A strange feeling that maybe this human was not just a soldier. Maybe he was something more. "I don't understand your kind," Kartik admitted softly. "You destroy, yet you protect. You kill, yet you save. What are you?" Jace smiled faintly. "We ask ourselves the same thing every day." Far away, hidden among the rocks, a small alien scout watched them, eyes glowing silently, recording every moment. The Alliance would not forgive betrayal, and this scene was something dangerous. An enemy leader alive, being protected by a human soldier. It was a spark that could light a new fire, or maybe something worse. Night passed slowly, each hour stretching like years. Jace stayed awake, his rifle in hand, his eyes heavy but focused. He had made a choice, and choices had consequences. In the quiet moments, he thought of his brother, who died in the early days of the war, and wondered what he would think of this moment. Would he be proud, or would he be angry? Kartik finally spoke again. "When this is over, when I return to my kind, if I return, they will want revenge. They will call this weakness." "Then let them," Jace said without looking away from the horizon. Maybe it's time someone showed them what strength really looks like, and with that they sat side by side, not as soldier and enemy, but as two survivors, caught in the storm of war. Their paths now tangled, their fates unsure, but one thing was clear: nothing would ever be the same again. Hunted by both sides, the sky turned pale orange as the new day began, light creeping slowly over the battlefield, revealing twisted metal, scorched earth, and shattered dreams. Jace stood still, eyes scanning the horizon, while Kartik remained hidden beneath the camouflage of ash and broken armor. The human soldier had barely slept. His body was tired, his mind racing, but something deeper than restlessness kept him alert. He knew the silence would not last too long. Someone would come, either to search for survivors or to investigate the strange signal that had been transmitted hours ago. Kartik stirred weakly, trying to sit up, but the pain gripped his body like iron chains. Jace helped him lean against a large piece of debris, propping him up carefully. Their eyes met again, and for a moment there was a strange, unspoken understanding. Two warriors from opposite worlds, sharing the same fear, the same exhaustion, and now the same secret. They found something. The voice came suddenly from the comm unit on Jace's wrist, breaking the quiet with urgency. Jace tapped it quickly, switching to a private channel, trying to sound normal. "This is Monroe. Report HQ picked up unauthorized movement near your sector," another soldier responded. "Could be scavengers or enemy scouts. Stay alert. Backup is 20 minutes out." Copy that, Jace replied calmly, but inside his chest tightened. 20 minutes was too short and too long at the same time. They had to move, or at least prepare for what was coming. He turned to Kartik, who watched him silently, understanding that the little peace they had was over. "You can't walk far," Jace said, thinking aloud. "We need cover, or a place to hide. Maybe that old bunker near the ridge. If we make it there, we might survive." Kartik nodded slowly, his pride swallowing the pain. He reached for a broken metal pole and used it as a makeshift crutch. Jace wrapped his arm around the alien and began leading him across the ruins, each step slow, each breath sharp. They moved like shadows through the skeleton of the battlefield, avoiding open paths, keeping their heads low above them. A recon drone hovered silently, its lens sweeping the terrain. It paused for a second, then flew away, unaware of what it had almost seen, or perhaps unwilling to believe it. Jace and Kartik finally reached the edge of the ridge and found the remains of an old bunker, half buried in dirt and rock. The door was cracked open, metal rusted and scorched, but it was shelter inside. It was dark, the air stale and cold. The bunker had not been used in years, but it still held emergency supplies. Jace activated the old light panels and checked the corners for danger, then helped Kartik lie down on a flat steel bench. He found a water capsule and handed it to the alien, who drank slowly, his eyes never leaving Jace's face. "You risk everything for me," Kartik said, voice hoarse and confused. "Why?" "Because I'm tired of this," Jace replied. "War has rules, but humanity doesn't always follow them. Sometimes we break the cycle with a single act. I don't expect you to understand, but I won't let you die because others tell me to." Kartik looked away, his mind struggling with emotions he had buried long ago in his world. Mercy was weakness in the battlefield. It was death. But now he had seen it, and it had saved him, and that truth would never leave him. Suddenly the bunker lights flickered. A soft beep echoed from the corner. One of the old surveillance screens came to life, showing a squad of human soldiers moving through the ruins. Not far from the ridge behind them, an alien scout team moved as well, unaware of the humans' presence. Both forces searching the same area, both getting closer. "They are all coming," Jace whispered. "Both sides. If they see us together, they'll shoot first and ask later." Kartik's eyes narrowed. "We must separate. If I stay, you die. If you stay, I die." "No," Jace replied. "We stay together. This started because I didn't walk away. I won't start now, but we have no allies left," Kartik said weakly, his voice like wind through broken stone. "Then we fight for each other," Jace said firmly. "If we survive this, maybe we can show them something new, something better." They armed themselves with what little was available: an old plasma cutter, a flare gun, a single energy grenade, and their determination as the footsteps Outside grew louder, and the shadows passed over the bunker entrance. Both knew the real war was just beginning, not between armies, but between fear and courage, between hatred and hope, between the past and the future. And as the first soldier stepped into the light of the bunker door, rifle raised and eyes wide, the two warriors stood side by side, ready for whatever came next. No longer enemies, but something more, something dangerous to a world built on war. A shot that changed everything. The moment stretched like a frozen breath as the soldier at the door stared inside, rifle aimed, eyes darting from Jace to the towering, injured alien behind him. For a second, no one moved, no one breathed. The silence, louder than any explosion. Jace stepped forward slowly, hands raised, voice calm. Wait, don't shoot, listen to me. Soldier's finger twitched near the trigger, confusion flickering across his face. This isn't what he expected. He had come searching for enemy stragglers, not a human, guarding an alien inside a forgotten bunker. Behind him more soldiers approached, drawn by the signal and tension in the air, their footsteps like thunder getting louder with each second. Kartik stood behind Jace, barely able to keep his balance, his claws still wrapped around the makeshift crutch made of bent steel. His armor cracked, his wounds still fresh, but his eyes were alert, glowing faintly in the dim light. He didn't speak, but the message was clear. He wasn't attacking, he wasn't threatening, just standing, waiting for a decision that would shape both their fates. Drop your weapon now, the soldier barked, aiming more directly, eyes locked on Jace. This is treason, Monroe. Step aside, or I'll put you down. Jace's voice didn't shake, his heart raced, but his feet stayed firm. I won't step aside. He's not a threat, he surrendered. I'm protecting a life, not betraying my own. Second soldier entered, now weapon drawn, aimed at Kartik. Situation escalating too fast, too sharp, one move too sudden, and it would all end. Jace knew it, Kartik knew it, but neither backed down. Then, just when the air felt like it might split, a third voice entered the room from behind the soldiers, cold and commanding. Stand down, all of you. It was Commander Lorne, her face hard as steel, her presence enough to freeze motion. The room turned still again. Like the eye of a storm, she stepped inside slowly, her eyes scanning the room, taking in every detail: the injured alien, the armed human, the confusion on her men's faces. She looked at Jace long and hard, then at Kartik, who met her stare without fear. Explain this, she demanded. Jace spoke quickly, directly, explaining the battlefield, the cry for mercy, the choice to help instead of kill, how they had avoided detection, how backup would have found only a corpse if he had done what was expected, and how this warrior now stood alive because of one human decision. Commander Lorne said nothing at first, just studied them. Then, to everyone's shock, she holstered her weapon and said, bring him with us. What? Shouted one of the soldiers in disbelief. Ma'am, he's the enemy. He's wounded, Lorne interrupted, and unarmed he surrendered. We take him prisoner by protocol, unless you'd like to explain to HQ why you executed a helpless being on record. Tension broke like glass, shattered and sharp. The soldiers lowered their rifles reluctantly and approached with caution, binding Kartik's hands in special cuffs, designed for alien strength. He didn't resist, his eyes remained locked on Jace, with a look that was not anger or fear, but something else, something that almost looked like respect. They moved out quickly, leaving the bunker behind, walking through the ruins as the sun climbed higher, turning the ash gold and silver. Human soldiers on edge, alien scouts in retreat, their moment of danger replaced by a new unknown. Back at the base, Kartik was placed inside a reinforced cell, his wounds treated by medical drones, his vitals monitored. Jace was ordered to report directly to Intelligence Command, his actions under review, his status uncertain. In the days that followed, strange things began to happen. Whispers through the base, soldiers unsure if Jace was a hero or a traitor, officials arguing in quiet rooms about what to do with the alien leader who had not resisted capture and who spoke of a human that showed mercy. Kartik remained silent during the interrogations, answering only basic questions, refusing to give information on troop movements or base locations. He simply asked one question again and again: where is Jace? In his own quarters. Jace sat alone, watching old reports and battle feeds. Thinking about every life he had taken, everyone he hadn't, the choice he made now rippling through the military like a wave too large to ignore. He didn't regret it even if it cost him everything. Then late one night a message came through his COMM link, encrypted, low priority but urgent. Car Tech wants to speak with you, came the words. Jace didn't hesitate. He stood, put on his uniform, and walked into the unknown again. He entered the cell alone, the guards outside tense, ready but respectful. And as the door closed behind him and the two warriors stood face to face once more, something passed between them. Not anger, not sadness, something unspoken, something powerful. You did not have to return, Kartik said, voice calm but deep. You risked your life twice now for me. Some things are worth risking, Jace replied, not knowing if he meant the war or the truth, or just this strange bond between enemies turned something else. The alien warrior stepped closer, his eyes glowing faintly in the dark cell. Then, I offer you my debt, human, in my culture. That means you are now under my protection, even from my own people. Jace didn't know what that meant, but he nodded anyway, because somehow deep down he knew this was only the beginning. Secrets inside the walls. The heavy metal door slid shut behind Jace, leaving him alone inside the quiet room, his breath steady, but his thoughts loud. He sat across from Kartik, separated only by a reinforced energy field, soft blue light casting strange shadows on the walls. The alien warrior sat tall, now his wounds healing quickly thanks to advanced treatments. His eyes focused, calm, but unreadable. They watched each other in silence for a long time, as if measuring weight without words. Jace finally broke it by leaning forward, his voice low but steady. What happens next depends on you. Your people will come looking for you. My people are already questioning me. We don't have much. Kartik tilted his head slightly, his claws resting on the table before him. They will not come to rescue me, he said. If they do, it'll not be to save me, but to erase what I represent. A warrior who surrendered, a warrior who found something worth protecting in the enemy that is shame to them, worse than death. Jace frowned. Then you're not just a soldier, you're something more, aren't you? Kartik looked away for a second, the first time his composure shifted. I was heir to the high clans, meant to lead the next generation of warriors. I believed in power and domination. I thought honor came from victory only. But this war changed everything, and now here I sit alive because a human refused to obey the rules of war. Jace leaned back, trying to process the weight of those words. If command learns that we captured the air, it'll escalate everything. They'll want to use you as leverage, or worse. Kartik nodded slowly. I know that is why I must leave, and why you must help me. The request hit Jace like a pulse blast. His mind raced. Helping an alien escape from a secure human facility would be called treason. There would be no trial, only punishment, and yet the part of him that stayed on that battlefield, the part that chose to save a dying warrior instead of walking away, knew this moment would come, and he had already chosen which side he stood on. The plan came together in pieces, whispered during medical checks and late-night cell visits. Jace used his clearance to access floor schematics, found weaknesses in the security rotations. Old maintenance tunnels never sealed properly. He hacked small portions of the system under the excuse of routine diagnostics, masking the true purpose behind every command car. Trained in secret, using resistance bands built from scrap hidden in the corners of his cell, regaining strength little by little, preparing his body for the break. His people would never believe in alliances. They had been taught humans were monsters. Yet now he trusted one more than any commander, more than even his own blood. The night of the escape came quietly, no alarms, no warnings, just darkness and opportunity. Jace disabled 2 surveillance nodes, long enough to slip past the main corridor sensors. He entered the cell, unlocked the force field, and passed a simple nod to Kar. Teku rose without hesitation. They moved through the lower halls in complete silent steps, light hearts pounding, every door opened without sound, every corner cleared with care. A patrol came early, unexpected. Jace grabbed Kartik, pulled him into an old storage room seconds before footsteps passed just meters away, their backs against the cold wall. Breath held eyes fixed on the shadows moving beyond the cracks in the door when the danger passed. They didn't speak, just moved again, faster now, with more urgency. Finally, they reached the old tunnel hidden behind a false panel covered in years of dust and rust. Jace pried it open and helped Kartik inside, crawling through the narrow path that led far beyond the facility walls. They emerged under the cloak of night, the desert wind cool against their faces, the stars above like silent witnesses to a secret. Neither side could ever know. They didn't stop moving until the facility lights were miles behind them and only the dark mountains lay ahead. They found shelter in an abandoned outpost used long ago by explorers, now nothing more than bones and stone. Jace, slumped against the wall, exhausted, covered in sweat and dirt, Kartik stood at the doorway watching the horizon as if expecting hunters to appear from the night sky. "You know they will come for us," he said, not as a warning but a fact. "I will be hunted, and so will you." Jace nodded, already knowing the truth. "I didn't save you to run forever, but I'm not letting them turn you into a weapon or a message. You're more than that." We both are. Kartik turned to him, eyes sharp but full of something new, not fire, not pride, something closer to purpose. "Then we run. Not in fear but in defiance. We will find others who have seen what we have, and when the time is right, we speak. Not as human and alien, but as two voices that once stood on the edge of war and chose mercy instead." In the distance, a soft rumble echoed through the night, the sound of dropships, searching, scanning, hunting. But the two figures in the outpost did not hide anymore. They stood ready, no longer fugitives but symbols of a truth too powerful to bury. Asterisk. The broadcast that shook the stars. The old outpost walls were cracked and crumbling, its roof half caved in from storms that had passed long before either of them arrived. But inside its hollow core, Jace and Kartik found silence, a strange peace that neither had felt in weeks. They sat across from each other with flickering light from a scavenged power cell illuminating their faces, both carrying fresh cuts and bruises from the escape, but neither complaining, both too focused on what came next. Jace worked on a data slate, fingers moving quickly across the screen, pulling up maps, old transmission codes, encryption layers that would hide their signal from both human and alien satellites. Kartik watched silently until finally asking, "What is your plan now, human? You've lost your home, your name, your rank, everything you were is gone, and still you sit here fighting against the current." Jace didn't look up as he replied, "Maybe I never knew who I was until I walked away from all of that. Maybe I was just following orders, breathing routine, fighting strangers for reasons someone else believed. Now I get to choose for myself, and I choose this you." Kartik blinked once, a slow, thoughtful gesture. In his culture, warriors rarely questioned purpose. They served until death without pause. But now he had seen something different, a new kind of strength, one that came from disobedience and compassion. "We send a message," Jace said, finally finishing the code and locking in the signal. "Not to command, not to my side or yours, but to everyone, civilians, soldiers, medics, refugees, anyone still human enough to listen. I want them to see what I saw, a warrior asking for mercy and a soldier choosing to give it. You think one message will stop a war?" Kartik asked, not mocking but genuinely curious. "No," Jace said quietly, "but it can start a new kind of conversation. Maybe a crack in the wall, maybe something more. I have to try." Kartik nodded once, slow and firm. "Then let us send it together." The terminal buzzed to life, old tech barely holding under the strain, but still functioning just enough. Jace set up the audio filters while Kartik adjusted the alien frequency converter to match both human and alliance receivers across multiple systems. The signal would be ghost-like, hard to trace, but powerful enough to catch ears in the right places. When they were ready, Jace activated the recorder. "This is Lance Corporal Jace Monroe, formerly of the Terran Expeditionary Forces. I am broadcasting this message from outside both command borders and Alliance territory. I am alive, and I am not alone." Kartik stepped forward. "This is a Kartik, former war leader of the Vranhai clans. I too am alive. I too am not alone." Jace continued, "I saved his life, not out of weakness but out of strength, not because I was ordered, but because I chose to, and in that choice, I discovered something both sides have forgotten, that peace is not surrender, and mercy is not. But Treyakart followed, I surrendered not. Out of shame, but understanding, not because I feared death, but because I finally saw life beyond blood, and battle we were enemies, but now we are something more. They finished the message with one line spoken together, not rehearsed, but natural. If you believe in more than war, find us. And the signal went out, a pulse through the stars, touching satellites and scramblers, and broken receivers lost in distant corners of space, a whisper in a galaxy screaming with conflict. The response came faster than either expected, not from armies or leaders, but from voices small and quiet. At first a smuggler ship pinged their channel asking for confirmation. A medic station on a forgotten moon replied with a single word, listening. Then a refugee group offered coordinates to a safe zone still hidden from both military networks. But not everyone who heard was friendly on a cruiser deep in human territory. General Ross slammed his fist against the console, eyes burning as the message repeated again and again. Find us, he ordered. Full trace. Now bring them in, dead or alive, on the other side of the war. Admiral Drawn of the Alliance watched with equal fury, his tentacles tightening over the rail as he hissed, they have poisoned the message systems. Prepare. Strike teams erased the signal and the voices behind it, but neither side could fully stop it. Now the message was already bouncing through relays re-uploaded by Rogue. A is mirrored in hidden channels carried by traders and wanderers, until it could not be silenced completely. Back in the outpost, Jace shut down the terminal, both exhausted and satisfied. We just lit a spark, he said quietly. Now we see who brings the fire. Kartik replied, standing beside him, both warriors aware that the easy part was over. What came next would test them in ways war never did. They were hunted by all, trusted by few, but somewhere in the stars they were no longer alone. When enemies become hope, the wind outside the outpost howled like a creature mourning its dead as dust swept over the rocky hills, painting everything in a dull gray. Both Jace and Kartik stood near the narrow window, watching shadows shift across the horizon. They had been hiding for days, moving between dead zones, dodging satellites and patrol ships, barely sleeping, barely breathing, waiting for the world to answer their calend. It had answered. The first to arrive was a broken cargo shuttle patched with scrap, its engine stuttering but loyal. It carried 5 passengers, 2 humans, 2 aliens, and 1 child with a cybernetic eye. They came not with weapons, but with questions, and they stayed not for orders, but for truth. They listened to the story of a battlefield cry, and the human who didn't walk away, and they added their own tales of lost betrayal, and the tiny acts of kindness that had kept them alive. Then came a scout vessel painted black with old rebel markings. Its pilot, a one-armed woman who had once flown bombing runs over Kartik's clan, but now brought medical supplies and an old journal of peace talks never completed. She shook Jace's hand without hesitation and said, it's time someone finished what they started. More came quietly, not in armies, but in trickles. Smugglers turned messengers, deserters turned dreamers, wounded soldiers from both sides. Wearing no colors, only tired eyes and willing hands, they formed no government, no flag, no single voice, just a network of belief that something different was possible, something more than endless blood. Jace watched it unfold like a story he never thought he'd live to see. Each new face, each whispered name, each handshake felt like a battle, one not with fire, but with faith. And though the danger never faded, though drones still scanned the skies and hit squads still searched every rock, they refused to disappear, because now they had become something harder to kill than flesh. They had become hope. Inside the outpost, an old projector was brought back to life and displayed a map on the wall, showing safe paths, refugee tunnels, rebel-cum relays, and secret supply lines built by decades of resistance. Kartik stood in front of it, speaking to a group of humans and aliens side by side, his voice calm but commanding. He explained how to avoid patrols, where to find food, how to speak across borders without being traced, not as a leader giving orders, but as a warrior giving tools. Jace joined him, adding his knowledge of human procedures, access codes, fallback protocols, old call signs still used by soldiers who didn't trust command anymore. Together They created not a battle plan, but a lifeline for anyone willing to step off the path of war. But as their circle grew, so did the threat. Satellites began to converge. Faster drones flew lower, more aggressive, and one morning as the twin suns rose bleeding orange across the hills, a warning beacon lit up flashing red. 3 assault ships inbound, minimal time to react, were exposed. Jace said, "No panic, just fact. The outpost isn't defensible. We need to move." Now the group scattered in silence, trained by necessity. They packed supplies, loaded wounded, and activated decoys, while Jace and Kartik prepared to stay behind, not to die, but to delay, not to be heroes, but to give their people a chance. They planted sonic disruptors in the sand, set EMP mines under rocks, used old war tricks to turn the ground itself into a weapon, and when the ships landed with engines screaming and soldiers poured out with rifles raised, the outpost exploded in flashes of light and sound, and chaos smoke covered the valley as Kartik and Jace moved through it like ghosts, striking where it hurt, disappearing before the enemy could regroup, not aiming to kill but to disable, to confuse, to remind both sides that control was not the same as victory. In the end, the attackers withdrew, confused and bleeding, and when the smoke cleared, the outpost was gone, only ashes and metal fragments left behind. No bodies, no prisoners, no proof, just a burned symbol drawn in the dirt with a boot too. Crossed lines forming a bridge. Weeks passed, but the whispers didn't stop. They grew louder, carried by pirates and traders, embedded in songs and graffiti found in dreams and decoded maps. Children on both sides began asking, who was the human who saved the alien? Who was the alien who spared the human? Who were they really? Legends. They said traitors, some said saviors, others claimed, but all agreed on one thing: they had done what no one else dared. They had stopped for a dying enemy and walked into history together, far across the stars, in a hidden sanctuary carved into the side of a forgotten mountain. Jace sat beside Kartik, watching more arrivals step off dusty transports, people with different skins, different voices, but the same fire in their eyes. And Jace turned to his companion and smiled, tired but full of life. "We didn't end the war today," he said, "but we changed it." Har. Tech looked out at the crowd gathering below, a mix of old warriors and young dreamers, and replied then, "Let this be the first peace that doesn't begin with blood." And so it was. Not the end, but the beginning, not of a perfect world, but of a possible one, built not by armies, but by those brave enough to see an enemy and reach out their hand instead. The end.